Hi guys, it's Leah. Welcome back, or welcome if you are new, and welcome to Bookmas Day 5. I am incredibly excited about today's video because if there's anything to know about me, I love monthly TBRs, I love seasonal TBRs, but more so than anything, I love a yearly TBR. And so today we're going to be talking about the 26 books that I desperately want to read in 2026. I did not do the best job of my 25 for 2025. I think at the time when we're currently filming this, I've read 10. It's not looking good. I don't think I've ever actually completed these yearly TBR videos that I do. However, for 2026, I'm definitely adamant, and I had that in mind when picking out all of the books. As always, we definitely have range. We have varying genres, so let's start with fiction. First and foremost for fiction is a book that I definitely know I want to read the second that 2026 comes about, and that is The Winners by Frederick Backman. I read Us Against You in one of my most recent reading vlogs after I want to say I started Beartown 9 months ago. The series is always a series that I knew I wanted to read specifically during the winter, which is why I did wait for winter to come back around again, and in January I feel like this is going to be the perfect way to kick off my year. Part of me is excited, part of me is equally terrified. If you know anything about the Beartown series, you will absolutely know why. Frederick Backman, the way that he writes, he has made me cry in every single book that I've ever read from him. He's very quickly becoming one of my favourite authors, and of course this is the last book in the Beartown series, so I will also feel very accomplished to finish a series at the start of 2026. So this is one that I'm hoping to read in January. Another one actually that I'm planning to read in January, this is a proof copy and it does come out on the 20th of January. It is Half His Age by Jeanette McCurdy. This is actually one of my most anticipated fiction releases of 2026. I'm so intrigued to see what it's going to be like. Obviously Jeanette McCurdy is so well known and so well beloved. She wrote I'm Glad My Mum Died, which was such a hit non-fiction book, I want to say a couple of years ago now. I really adored that book. I love the way that she narrated it. Obviously it was literally about her life, however the way that she wrote it was so eloquent and so incredibly intriguing that when I was reading it I did think that she would probably become such an incredible fiction novelist. So I'm really intrigued to see how her fiction work does. I really don't know much about this other than what is on the blurb. I actually haven't seen any early reviews yet, so I will be going into this one quite blind, but again, another one that I want to read in January. Next up is one of the books that I feel like everyone was talking about this year, and that is The Wedding People by Alison S. Vetch. I am so intrigued to see how I feel about this one because, like I said, everyone was talking about it this year and every review that I saw was essentially a 5-star. As much as I do really love literary fiction and I read a lot of it in 2025, I do feel like 2025 was the year of me falling back in love with fantasy. So a lot of the new fiction releases or the new paperback releases in the literary fiction space kind of took a bit of a back burner for me. However, 2026, I definitely want to get back on that stride, and this is one of the ones I will be doing that with. A literary fiction that is definitely more of a backlist title, but it is a book that I've known I wanted to read for years, is The Water Cure by Sophie McIntosh. I remember a few years ago I'd never ever heard anybody talk about this author before. I'd never read anything from her, and then I read I Who Have Never Known Men for the first time, which if you're not new here, you will know it is one of my favourite books of all time. Sophie McIntosh is actually the author that did the introduction for that, and after I loved I Who Have Never Known Men, I was like, okay, anybody who does an introduction for I Who Have Never Known Men, I'm probably going to love their literature. And I did read one book from her this year, and that was Cursed Bread, and I really liked it. However, this one I'm expecting to fall in love with. Again, this is another one that I definitely want to go into as blind as possible, but I do feel like it has a dystopian underlining because I know I loved her writing style in Cursed Bread. I just really want to be pleasantly surprised by this, and like I said, it's one that's been on my radar for years, so finally we'll be reading it in 2026. Next we have a book that is actually one of the most recent books that I've acquired that is on my shelves, and that is Art and Lies by Jeanette Winterson. I absolutely adore Jeanette Winterson. She is an author that I absolutely want to read every single thing from, and I feel like this is probably going to be my next one from her. First and foremost, this cover I am utterly in love with. I feel like the pomegranates, the art, it screams a book that I'm probably going to fall in love with. Do I really know what it's about? No. I haven't also seen any reviews for this one specifically. I read the blurb when I was in the bookshop buying it, and I fell utterly in love with the prospects, so I'll read it to you just so you can get an idea. It says, in a near future London, Sappho, Picasso and Handel each set up upon the same plan to flee the city by train, finding themselves fellow passengers. The poet, the painter and the musician discover their fates drawn together by the curious agency of a book. As stories within stories unfold and journeys intersect, another world comes to the fore, one of painful beauty where language has the power to heal. I feel like that synopsis is incredibly vague and subtle, but it still has so many buzzwords that I feel like I love in literature, but specifically in Jeanette Winterson's writing style. And like I said, I do want to read her entire backlist, so this will be the next one that I read. Now, a literary fiction that again I've had on my radar for absolute years. I was so adamant that I was going to read it this year in the summer. I didn't. It is The Pisces by Melissa Broder. I cannot believe that I didn't read it this year. Melissa Broder is one of my favourite authors, and she actually does have a 2026 release coming out. I will pop the synopsis on here because when I read that, guys, it literally now is definitely one of my top 2026 anticipated releases. It sounds perfect to me, so I want to make sure that I've read every book she's had released prior before that. And The Pisces is is the only one. I will be reading this in the summer because all I know about this is that the protagonist falls in love with a merman. I can imagine the writing is incredibly sticky and the sort of atmosphere that you definitely want to read in the heat of summer. So another one that I need to read it this year. Otherwise, guys, I don't know who I'm going to be if I don't end up reading it in 2026. And then the last literary fiction book that I do own here currently that I want to read in 2026, we do also have a few more titles that I don't own yet, summer 2026 releases that I haven't got my hands on. We have Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. This is another book that I've had on my radar for so long, and I finally found it in a secondhand bookshop. I feel like 2025 was the year of me really sticking to my book buying ban. I really tried to prioritize reading the books that I owned physically or on my Kindle, and I definitely did a good job of that. So when I found this in a secondhand bookshop, I grabbed it instantly, and I am so excited that I will finally be getting to this. This is another one that I don't really know what it is about. I feel like the protagonist becomes friends with an octopus. I adore literary fiction like that. I love the humanity aspect of it. I love the character arcs that can be explored, and this is just another one that I've heard the best things about. So another one I will be reading in 2026. Some fiction books that I do definitely want to read, but of course I don't have my hands on them yet because they are 2026 releases. First and foremost, we have Cecile Pin's release, Celestial Lights. I adore Cecile Pin. I read Wandering Souls from her a good few years ago, and I've been desperately waiting for another release from her, and this one I believe is about astronauts. After loving Atmosphere, I feel like so many people, I really hope anyway, get gravitated towards this book because the way that she writes and her narration is so impeccable. Definitely up there as one of my most anticipated 2026 releases. Another one that I desperately want to read is What Am I, a Deer by Polly Barton. Another literary fiction that I cannot wait for. It's also a Fitzcarraldo edition, and Fitzcarraldo very let me down, so I will be reading this probably the second that it is published. Next, actually, I do correct myself. This is not a 2026 release. However, there's a reason that I don't own this book yet. It is A Certain Hunger by Chelsea Summers. The reason, babe, why I don't own the book yet, even though I've wanted to read it for years, is this used to be the UK cover. This was the American cover. This American cover is now being published in the UK. I feel like the publisher was probably bored of hearing complaints like the difference. Which one is better? There's literally no comparison. And I know we shouldn't judge a book by its cover and call me shallow for maybe not wanting to read it solely because I wanted this gorgeous cover, but I will be getting my hands on this now, and I will finally be reading it in 2026. And another one that I actually heard a lot of people talking about this year, this is the only romance book that I have on this list, is Promise Me Sunshine by Cara Bastone. I read Ready or Not by Cara Bastone this year and I adored it. This is a book that I desperately want to read in the summer. I just didn't get around to it this year, and again, I want to own a physical copy, so another one I will be reading in summer 2026. Okay, next, let's go on to all of the classic books that I will be prioritizing to read in 2026. I absolutely adore classic literature, and as much as I do read a lot of them throughout an entire year, I still want these 26 books to be a little bit challenging. I don't want it to be incredibly easy that I get to all of them. Maybe that is also my issue. Maybe that's why in previous years I haven't completed it. Maybe I've made it a little bit too complicated for me. However, with classic books, as much as I do love them, sometimes I do get in my head about how intimidated I am by them. There are naturally some that I do have and have built so much anticipation, both good and bad, that I do just end up avoiding them. However, 2026 again is the year that I want to tick off a lot of classic books that I've had on my radar for years. And so then, in no particular order, first and foremost, okay, we're starting off with a big one, East of Eden by John Steinbeck. This is a book that I feel like I've always known I've wanted to read, but I haven't really felt any drawing to. I haven't felt any pressure to get to it anytime soon. However, and I don't really know what it is, but the past couple of months, all I've been wanting to read is this. I'm so deeply intrigued by it. This is a classic book that I've only heard the most breathtaking things about, and I did read a John Steinbeck in GCSE alongside thousands of other students in the UK. I did read Of Mice and Men. Perhaps that is why I didn't feel the innate desire to pick this up anytime soon. However, I'm desperate to read it now. I feel like I'm probably going to be doing a buddy read with Mela early next year. It might be our first buddy read of the year, might tick it off straight away. I'm just so incredibly excited about it. I need to know what people are talking about when they reference this book. I'm very excited, but definitely a little bit nervous. Next up is a book that I actually, again, had every intention to read this year and I just didn't get to it. It is Perfume by Patrick Suskind. Another classic that I've only heard the most incredible things about, but this one specifically, a lot of people have told me to my face that I will adore it, that it's going to probably become a favourite. I don't really know what to expect from it. I've heard it's very grotesque, I've heard it's very dark and gothic, but very beautiful. I'm so incredibly intrigued, and again, because it is one that I was so adamant that I was going to read in 2025 and I just didn't, it is one that absolutely I will be prioritising in the next couple of months, honestly. A classic book that I initially bought actually for the cover. I love Angela Carter, but this copy, when I saw it, my jaw was on the floor. It is Angela Carter's Book of Fairy Tales. This is probably one of my favourite covers that I've ever seen in my entire life. It is beautiful. However, I do actually want to read what is inside it. I adore Angela Carter. She is another author, another modern classic author, I suppose, that again, I want to read every single thing she ever published. I feel as if the couple of books I've already read from her definitely lean more into the retelling and fairy tale sphere. I feel like she does that perfectly. She has such a way with her narration that feels so classic but simultaneously feels quite modern. The magical realism aspect of it is superb, and I can only just imagine how her fairy tales would be. This is also so gorgeous. There are so many beautiful illustrations inside, so I'm just excited to read this all round. I feel like it's going to be such an incredible experience. This is probably one that I'm going to take my time with, maybe over the course of a couple of months, but I desperately want to read it very soon. One classic that is absolutely a given that I'll be reading in 2026, because I'm hoping but simultaneously a little bit heartbroken over the fact that I feel like 2026 will be the year that I finish all of Clarice Lispector's books, and the next one that I need to read after the one that I'm currently reading is An Apprenticeship or The Book of Pleasures. This one is so incredibly short, and I genuinely think out of all of the Clarices that I have left to read for the first time, they're all the tiny novellas. I am so excited to be able to say that I've read her entire backlist. I've read every book from her that has been translated into English currently, and absolutely off of the back end of that, all of the content that I can make surrounding her videos. I definitely have so many fun video plans. I know a lot of you have been asking for Clarice Lispector specific videos, maybe asking where is the best place to start, my favorite in ranking, and I definitely plan to make videos on all things like that. Very excited always to gush about Clarice Lispector. You guys know me, I will never shut up about her. However, I'm equally heartbroken, and yeah, this is going to be one of the first ones that I read in 2026. Very excited, but it does definitely break my heart a little bit. Another author that I'm slowly but surely making my way through her entire backlist is Shirley Jackson, and the one that I've added onto this list is The Sundial. I do absolutely hope, like Clarice Lispector, to read more than one Shirley Jackson in 2026. However, this is one that I've just had on my radar for so long, so I don't know why I thought this one. I honestly could have put any of them on here. I absolutely adore Shirley Jackson. I love the way that she narrates classic gothic fiction. She is definitely one of my favorite authors for that. Her books are always so incredibly eerie, but definitely have social commentary on feminism and what it is like to be a woman, especially at a young age. They are incredibly ghostly and so incredibly haunting and so eloquent and so perfect in my opinion. So The Sundial is another one that I will be reading probably early 2026. A book that is actually probably one of the most requested books for you guys to see me read, slash a book that a lot of you think I will adore, is The House of Spirits by Isabella Lande. This is another one that has been on my shelf for an incredibly long time, and even when I was a bookseller, I had so many people coming up to me saying that I would love it based on other recommendations that I put around the shop. It is one, and I don't really know why it so deeply intimidates me. I'm hoping that maybe it will become one of my book club books in 2026, and then I can read it with a group of you, but I am just so excited for this. I will be going into it blind. Hopefully I will read this in a reading vlog, but very excited, just very scared for that one. And the last but certainly not least for the classics category is, I'm not gonna lie, another book I was adamant to read in 2025, it just didn't happen. It is The Book of Disquiet by Fernando Pessoa. There is something about this book that I'm so incredibly adamant is going to be a 5-star, might potentially become a favourite book, and I don't know why, because I really don't know all that much about it. I have now read a tiny poetry collection by this author and I loved it. It was so eloquent, it was so beautiful, the narration was quite unique and very stream of consciousness. I personally really love perspectives like that, and I feel like this is another one that is going to be incredibly stream of consciousness. I feel like there are going to be so many quotes in this that I'm going to want to take to my grave. Before we go on to our next category, which is fantasy, I do actually have one non-fiction on this list, and it is another one that I think this one was actually the only book on this entire list that was part of my 25 for 2025. I really didn't want them to overlap too much. However, this book is definitely one I will be reading in 2026. It is Just Kids by Patti Smith. I really do want to delve more into non-fiction in 2026. I do actually have an entire non-fiction shelf of a lot of books that I haven't read yet, some that I have read and I've fallen in love with. For some reason, I never really prioritize them. I don't really know if it's because I don't really feel like you guys want to see them in reading vlogs, but there are so many non-fiction books that I definitely want to read in the upcoming months, and this is undoubtedly one of them. This is the only book on the 25 for 2025 that is overlapping for this year. Okay, we're now on to the final category, which is fantasy. Like I said earlier, I feel like 2025 was really my year of really defining what I love in the fantasy space, kind of falling in love with different fantasies. And so this year I definitely wanted to make sure that I have more fantasy on my 26 books for 2026 on my yearly TBR than I ever have before. And so there definitely are a few that I'm very excited to get to. I'm staring at one that, again, I've been saying I will read every year probably since 2023 maybe. It is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I really do want to film an entire vlog where I kind of binge read, or maybe, because I know they're really heavy, maybe not binge read but very quickly read all of these books. I have spoilers, I have non-spoilers. If that is something that you guys would love to see, if you would want to see a vlog like that for the Poppy War trilogy, please let me know. I have just had so many people in my life literally begging at this point for me to read this book, and I'm just so scared by it. I feel like it's in a realm of fantasy that I don't often read. However, again, it is one that I know I'm gonna love. I've read every other book from R.F. Kuang, so I just need to get to this series. Next up, we have two really new additions additions to my bookshelf. First and foremost, we have Fallen City by Adrian Young. This is the gorgeous Fairy Loot edition and it is utterly beautiful. I love Adrian Young's fantasies so much. I feel like this one is so different to all of the other ones that she has ever published, and again, I really don't know too much about it. I'll be going into it blind, but we'll be reading very early 2026. And one that I also had to add to this list because I feel like it's going to be everywhere is Brimstone by Callie Hart. I'm so incredibly excited about this. I read Quicksilver in January this year and I actually loved it a lot more than I expected. Honestly, I want to read this right now. I want to know what everyone's talking about because everyone is raving about this book at the minute and I've missed these characters so much. However, I do feel like I want to do a reread of Quicksilver before, and that is not going to happen until January or February at least. So another one that I'll be reading in 2026. I don't really know when, but it is one that absolutely I will be reading in a reading vlog. And last but certainly not least, we have 4 fantasy books that I do not yet own. Some of them are 2026 releases, some have been published this year. I want to say I just don't own them yet. First and foremost, it's In the Veins of the Drowning by Kaylee Cassidy. Now this is a fantasy book that so many of my friends have read and have loved and have raved about it. However, I think I want to wait until the second book is published in 2026. There is something about this book that when I see it, I know I'm probably going to want to read them back to back. I don't know if it is a duology or if it's a trilogy. Please let me know if you do know. However, I probably won't get to this one until the second one is published, so then I can read them back to back, but I'm very, very excited. I've only heard the best things. Another one that I'm so incredibly excited about, just like everybody else, is The Knave and the Moon by Rachel Gillis. This is of course the sequel to The Knight and the Moth. I loved The Knight and the Moth so much. It's definitely one of the best fantasy books that I've read all year. Also with the way that ended, oh my god, I need that book right now. It actually pains me. I think it is publishing in September or in like the second half of the year. So I am adamant that I will be reading it the second it is published, but it's so far away, but I know I want to read this one so bad. So that is also one of the books on this list. One that I will be reading early 2026 is A Dark Forgetting by Kristen Cicerelli. On my 2026 releases video, so many of you guys were talking about how this isn't a new release, they're kind of republishing it, and I actually had no idea, but I'm still so excited about it. I do actually have a proof of this one, so it is one again. I will likely be reading it in January, definitely in a reading vlog. I'm so excited because I love her writing so much. And then last but certainly not least, a book that is actually already published is Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent. Carissa Broadbent is another one of my all-time favorite fantasy writers. I have desperately been wanting to binge read this entire trilogy in 2025. However, it is absolutely the case again where I know I'm gonna want to binge read them back to back, and I don't have time for that until it probably hits February, so I will be doing that in the new year. Very, very excited. I've heard very mixed things about this series actually, but I know I love her writing, so I'm hopeful that I will fall on the end of loving this series. But yeah, honestly, an entire series that I know I'm gonna binge read as soon as I can. But yeah guys, those are the 26 books that I desperately want to read in 2026. As always, if you have read any of these or if any of them are on your radar, please let me know what you thought about them, whether you like them or you dislike them. Which ones do you think I need to prioritize? Simultaneously, if there are any of them that you would definitely love to see in reading vlogs or any specific reading vlog, please let me know and I will make sure to note that down. I am so incredibly excited about a new year. I absolutely love making a yearly TBR, so also please feel free to let me know what is the #1 book that you are adamant to read in 2026, whether it's a backlist title or a new release. I love binge watching these videos. I feel like you can always get such good recommendations out of them. If this is your first video you are seeing from me and you did enjoy it, would mean the absolute world if you considered subscribing and sticking around. We are not even halfway through Bookmas yet, which is absolutely crazy, so there are tons of more videos to come. I'm very excited for you guys to see them. As always too, all of my socials are linked down in the description box below. We have my Patreon, my TikTok, my Instagram, my Goodreads, my Fable, and so much more. And yeah guys, thank you so much for watching and for spending some time with me today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I will see you again very, very, very soon with Bookmas Day 6.